What is the greatest fear in the human heart? It's the fear of the end, the final silence, the closing of a door. We are taught from birth to see death as a thief, a void, an enemy. But what if an ancient, profound wisdom taught the exact opposite? What if it told you that death is not the end of life, but its mother? In the Afro-Cuban tradition of Regla de Ocha-Ifá, 3 simple words capture this earth-shattering idea. Iku Lobi Osha. How can this be? How can the force of absolute dissolution be the source of divine creation? Today, we are not just learning a proverb. We are unlocking a sacred code. A code that reveals how our deepest endings are, in fact, the fertile ground for our most divine beginnings. The end of a job, the end of a relationship, the moment you hit rock bottom and the person you thought you were simply breaks. We call these moments a crisis, a failure, an end. An ancient Afro-Cuban wisdom calls them something else, a birth. This isn't just poetry, it is a spiritual map. It teaches that your greatest, most painful death is not a punishment. It is a catalyst. It is the universe itself calling you to a profound rebirth. Today we explore this sacred formula and learn how to harness the power of our endings to create our most powerful, consecrated lives. I want you to think about the one thing this world tells you to fear more than anything else. The end. Death. Now, I want you to ask yourself, what if it's all a lie? What if death isn't a taker but a giver? Not a void but a womb? In the sacred Afro-Cuban tradition of Regla de Ocha-Ifá, there is a master key that unlocks this mystery. 3 words that reframe our entire existence. Iku Lobi Osha. Today, this long-lived axiom will be decoded and revealed. This isn't just a metaphor. It is a spiritual technology. It is the secret of how to die to your old, profane self in order to be reborn as your divine, true self. And today, we are going to learn how to use it. So get ready to question everything you once thought about this proverb. The saying carries deep spiritual significance. It reminds devotees that life and death are inextricably linked, and that every sacred thing we receive, even the guidance of the gods, is facilitated by those who came before us. It also conveys a message of humility and continuity. Today, S devotee will be tomorrow, S ancestor, and perhaps in time, an elevated spirit themselves. In Santería cosmology, death is not viewed as an absolute end, but as a transformation into another state of existence that remains actively involved in the world of the living. Iku Lobi Osha encapsulates this worldview poetically, teaching that from death springs new life, new spiritual authority, and the foundation of religious power. Scholars and practitioners of Afro-Cuban religions alike regard Iku Lobi Osha as a cornerstone tenet that illuminates Santería's cosmology and value system. The proverb establishes the primacy of ancestor reverence in relation to Orisha worship, as cultural anthropologist Miguel Barnett and others have noted. The saying signals that Eggún, the spirits of the dead, hold a central place in the religious system, to the extent that nothing should be done in Santería without first offering recognition to them. Lydia Cabrera, a pioneering scholar of Afro-Cuban lore, similarly documented the firm conviction that sin muerto no hay santo. Without the dead, there is nothing, no saint, meaning that all spiritual power in Ocha ultimately flows from the ancestors. This is not to collapse the distinction between ancestors and deities, but to highlight their interdependence. In Yoruba ontology, Orishas and Eggún occupy different tiers. Orishas are divinities linked to natural forces and tutelary roles, while Eggún are the personal dead. Yet the aphorism implies a cosmological continuum between mortal ancestors and divine beings. It teaches that divine ash, power, is transmitted through the lineage of the departed. From this perspective, Iku Lobi Osha can be understood that death, represented by the ancestors, gives birth to new spiritual realities, whether it be the literal elevation of an ancestor into an Orisha over time, or the metaphorical rebirth of a person into a saintly role through initiation. It begs for transformation. Beyond literal meaning, it is an alchemical role. In the rich theological lexicon of the Afro-Cuban religious system known as Regla de Ocha-Ifá, or more commonly, Santería or Lukumi, certain phrases function with the weight of scripture. They are not merely statements, but profound, paradoxical maxims. They are sacred equations that encapsulate the very DNA of its worldview. Among the most potent and perhaps most challenging of these is the sacred utterance, Iku Lobi Osha. A direct, literal translation yields a startling, almost heretical declaration: death gave birth to the Orisha, or saint. It is a phrase that stops the uninitiated mind in its tracks. How can death, the perceived end of all things, be a mother? How can the force of absolute dissolution be the source of divine creation? This report posits that this phrase is not, and has never been a literal historical statement. It is a sophisticated hermeneutic key, a philosophical portal designed to be turned, contemplated, and used to unlock the tradition's most complex and elegant understanding, the intrinsic, generative, and necessary relationship between mortality, spiritual transformation, and divine initiation. Our central thesis is that Iku Lobi Osha is a multi-layered concept, a spiritual diamond that reveals different truths when held to the light. Its most potent expression is found in the ritual itself, specifically the Kari Ocha, or initiation ceremony. This sacred process is not an addition but a transmutation. It is a precisely engineered symbolic death of the profane self, where the old identity is ritually dissolved to facilitate the spiritual rebirth of the new priest or priestess, the Orisha. This symbolic journey is frequently catalyzed by a terrifyingly literal one. The path to the throne of Osha is often paved with profound, life-altering crises. It may be a devastating illness, a catastrophic loss, or an existential collapse. A personal, tangible encounter with Iku, death as an active threat. The proverb captures this existential map. The confrontation with mortality becomes the very catalyst for seeking consecrated life. Finally, this personal and ritual truth expands to assert a fundamental cosmological principle. It declares that in the divine order of the universe, dissolution is not the enemy of creation. It is its sacred prerequisite. The seed must be buried and die in the dark earth to become a tree. A star must collapse to forge the elements of new life. Iku is the dark, fertile womb from which the sacred erupts. Therefore, the proverb is not one thing. It is three things at once: a condensed map of a spiritual journey, a precise formula for ritual transformation, and a universal axiom of cosmology. To fully comprehend its meaning, we must move beyond that simple, shocking translation and explore the profound dimensions it encompasses. This analysis will undertake that exploration, beginning with a systematic deconstruction of the phrase's three lexical components. From there, we will examine the unique theological character of its subject, Iku, death, not as an absence but as a dynamic and ever-present force. Finally, we will analyze the transformative process of its object, the birth of an Osha, to reveal the elegant and powerful synthesis that gives this phrase its enduring, life-altering power. To truly decode the proverb Iku Lobi Osha, one must first engage with its linguistic vessel, Lukumi, or Lukumi. This is the sacred liturgical language of Regla de Ocha-Ifá. Lukumi is not a fully vernacular living language spoken on the streets. It is a ritual lexicon, a bridge of spiritual memory, derived directly from the Yoruba language spoken by the enslaved West Africans forcibly brought to Cuba. Over centuries, it has been preserved in ritual while also being shaped by the crucible of its new environment. It has undergone phonological and grammatical influence from Cuban Spanish, and its vocabulary has been concentrated on what was essential for religious survival. Consequently, a direct word-for-word translation into Spanish or English serves only as a preliminary step. It is the keyhole, not the key. It shows us where the meaning is, but not what it is. The true, operative meaning is not found in a static dictionary. It is embedded in its theological context and unlocked through its ritual usage. Let us begin with the first and most powerful word, Iku. The Lukumi term Iku translates directly and unambiguously to death. However, to limit its meaning to the modern, Western concept of death, the mere cessation of biological function, a passive state, an absolute end, is to fundamentally miss the core of its significance. In the cosmological framework of Regla de Ocha-Ifá, Iku is not an abstract concept. It is a dynamic, personified spiritual entity. It is a powerful, sentient, and ever-present force that can be, and often is, understood as a deity or Orisha in its own right, with its own will, needs, and actions. This distinction is absolute. As one practitioner clarifies with precision, the Iku in Iku Lobi Osha refers specifically to Iku, that is, Iku as a Yoruba deity, death. This personification is the first and most critical step in decoding the entire phrase. It powerfully shifts the subject of our sentence. Death is no longer a passive event that happens to someone. Death is an active agent that acts. A mere event cannot give birth, but a deity, a cosmic force, an agent of change, most certainly can. This transformation from event to agent is the very foundation upon which the proverb's so profound logic is built. The verb at the heart of the proverb, lobi, is the generative engine that drives the entire concept. It is the action that bridges the chasm between the two seemingly opposite poles of death, Iku, and divinity, Osha. While a direct dictionary entry for this specific conjugation is not readily found in all simplified glossaries, its etymological root is clear and unmistakable. To understand lobi, we must look to the foundational Yoruba verb from which it is derived, be. This root verb means to give birth, to beget, or to bear. The linguistic evidence for this connection is robust. A comprehensive Lukumi dictionary, for instance, provides the related term Toby, which is defined as who gave birth, a praise name often referring to Yemaya. The phonetic similarity and shared semantic context strongly confirm that Lobi is a verbal construction from this same root, be, conjugated to mean gave birth or birthed. This linguistic connection is pivotal because the concept of birth is one of the most fundamental and recurring metaphors within the religion, extending far beyond the purely physical act. This is not a casual metaphor. It is a lived theological reality. The anniversary of an individual's Kari Ocha initiation is not just a commemoration. It is celebrated as their cumpleaños de Osha, their birthday in the religion. This event marks the literal, recognized start of their new, sacred life as a priest or priestess. The initiation ceremony itself is explicitly and consistently described by both practitioners and scholars as a spiritual birthing. It is a profound, meticulously orchestrated rite of passage designed to bring a new spiritual being, the Orisha, or owner of the Orisha, into existence. Therefore, when the phrase uses Lobi, it is deliberately invoking this profound spiritual concept. It does not signify a simple physical event. It signifies an awesome act of sacred creation, a bringing forth that is, by its very nature, spiritually transformative. Lobi is the verb that transforms Iku from a mere destroyer into a divine creator. The final term in our proverb, Osha, often spelled Ocha, is the sacred destination, the consecrated result of Iku's generative act. This word is perhaps the most layered of the three, functioning like a prism that refracts meaning. To understand the phrase, one must appreciate that Osha holds at least three distinct but deeply interrelated meanings within the tradition. One, the divine, Osha as deity first. And most broadly, Osha is a common and reverent term for the deities of the Yoruba pantheon themselves. It is used interchangeably with the more formal term Orisha and the common Spanish syncretic term Santo, saint. In this primary sense, Osha is the divine. It refers to the myriad forces of nature and archetypes of consciousness that are venerated, beings such as Chango, Shango, the king of thunder and fire, Yemaja, Yamoja, the mother of all waters, or Obatala, the elder Orisha of wisdom, purity, and creation. 2. The tradition, Osha as a system second by extension. Osha refers to the religious system as a whole. The tradition's formal name is often Regla de Ocha-Ifá, which translates to the rule of Osha and Ifá. In this context, Osha signifies the entire corpus of the beliefs of the elemental forces, the intricate web of rituals, and Ifa, the established ethical framework of the Orisha Odu represented through the Orisha Orunmila's prophecies. Both this combinations work in ancestry alliance to reach one's destiny. It is the path one follows, the sacred structure that governs a life dedicated to the patterns of Orisha. 3. The consecrated, Osha as transformation third. And most critically for our analysis of Iku Lobi Osha, the term refers to the state of consecration and, by extension, the consecrated individual. This is its most potent ritualistic meaning. The primary initiation ceremony that ordains a new priest or priestess is known as the Kariocha. This Lukumi term is a compound phrase that literally means to place the Osha on the head. Kari, to place Ori, on the head, Ocha, Osha. Having established the linguistic components, a deeper theological examination of Iku is essential. This step is critical to prevent a common but profound misinterpretation of the phrase Iku Lobi Osha. Iku is not a malevolent figure akin to a Western devil or a simplistic grim reaper. It is not an adversary to be defeated or a source of inherent evil. On the contrary, Iku is a fundamental, necessary, and respected component of the divine order. Understanding its true character is the key to grasping the proverb's immense cosmological depth. Within Afro-Cuban cosmology, Iku is portrayed as a powerful, impartial, and inevitable force whose primary function is to maintain cosmic balance. Its power is absolute. A common understanding notes that Iku is the only being who can withstand Eshu's unpredictability, a testament to its inescapable nature, as all beings must eventually respect its claim. Crucially, Iku is not self-directed. It is not a rogue force acting on malice or caprice. It is a direct agent of the supreme creator deity, Olodumare. Iku only acts when and where Olodumare commands. This makes Iku less an antagonist and more a divine functionary, an executor of the cosmic blueprint. A sacred story, or pataki, powerfully illustrates this unsentimental and essential role. The story recounts that when Olodumare tasked the Orishas with creating humanity, they first needed clay from the body of Aye, the earth. One by one, powerful Orishas like Esu and Ogun, attempted the task. But each time they went to take the clay, Aye cried out in pain. Moved by her tears and their own compassion, they could not complete the mission and returned to Olodumare empty-handed. Finally, Usanla Obatala, the architect of humanity, called upon Iku. When Iku arrived and began to take the mud, Aye cried out in pain just as she had before. But Iku, being the very essence of impartiality, didn't care about her tears. It proceeded without sentiment, took all the clay that was needed, and returned, thus accomplishing the mission so that creation could begin. This pataki is a brilliant piece of theology. It establishes Iku not as cruel, but as the only force capable of performing the necessary, albeit painful, cosmic functions that others cannot. The compassion of Esu and Eggún, while a virtue, was an obstacle to this specific creative task. Iku's impartiality, what a modern lens might mistake for coldness, was the essential ingredient for creation. It is the agent of transition, the force that clears the way, inextricably linking the act of taking, a form of destruction, with the act of making, creation. Perhaps the most critical theological clarification required to understand Iku Lobi Osha is the non-negotiable, foundational distinction between Iku, the singular deified force of death, and Eggún, the collective spirits of the dead, particularly one's revered ancestors. A common error for the uninitiated is to conflate these two, interpreting the phrase as a poetic statement about ancestor worship, suggesting, in essence, that the dead give rise to the saints. Practitioners and knowledgeable sources explicitly and emphatically refute this interpretation. As one source clarifies, this is a fundamental error. It is incorrect to interpret that an Iku Lobi Osha reference is made to the dead. This phrase refers only to Iku as a Yoruba deity. Otherwise, the phrase would have to be, the Eggún gave birth to the saint. This distinction is not a minor semantic point. It is a theological bright line that protects the profound and specific meaning of the proverb. Let's see, this is not an abstract metaphor. It is a process enacted through a series of profound and concrete ritual actions designed to first dissolve the old self and then construct the new. Part 1. The work of Iku, the symbolic death. First, the proverb's subject, Iku, is invoked. The symbolic death of the profane self is achieved through several key rites designed to dissolve the old world. Rompimiento, the breaking. This is a series of rites that represent a definitive, and often spiritually violent, break with the initiate's past life. It is a ritual death to old identities, accumulated spiritual impurities and negative energies, osogbo, and the profane history that binds them. Purification and head shaving, the initiate's head is shaved. This powerful act strips them of a primary marker of their social identity, ego, and worldly vanity. It is a profound act of erasure, creating a blank slate, a consecrated, clean vessel upon which a new, sacred identity can be inscribed. Seclusion. Following these rites, the initiate is secluded from the outside world. This period of isolation is a classic liminal state that perfectly mirrors both a state of death, a separation from the world of the living, and a period of gestation within a symbolic womb awaiting birth. Part 2. The work of Osha, the spiritual birth. Then, from this sanctified state of ritual death, the second half of the proverb, Lobi Osha, is enacted. The new Osha is birthed through subsequent rites, the seating of Osha. This is the apex of the ceremony, the literal seating of the Orisha onto the initiate's head. This is the moment of divine conception and spiritual birth, the alchemical fusion that creates a new being, the Orisha, priestess, who is now both human and a living crowned vessel for the divine. A new sacred name, the initiate receives a new Lukumi name, their Nombre de Osha. This is not just a title. It signifies their entirely new identity and destiny as a priest or priestess of their tutelary Orisha, marking the birth of a new person. The Iyaworaje, the year of the Iyawo. Finally, this year-long period of restriction, learning, and purity makes the symbolic rebirth a lived daily reality. The Iyawo, newborn, is treated as such, relearning how to navigate the world from a place of sacredness, vulnerability, and new power. The Kari Ocha ceremony, therefore, is revealed as a controlled, voluntary, and sacred engagement with the awesome power of Iku. This ritual death is structured, purposeful, and profoundly generative. The initiate, in effect, harnesses the very force of dissolution in order to create. They must die to their mundane, profane life in order to be reborn into a consecrated, sacred one. Iku Lobi Osha is thus the most precise and elegant description of this alchemical process. It is the essential formula for spiritual remaking. Here, then, lies the luminous mystery at the heart of the tradition. The Kariocha ceremony is revealed not as a mere ritual, but as a profound, voluntary spiritual alchemy. It is the sacred art of courageously engaging the most awesome and feared power in the cosmos, Iku, not as a victim awaiting an end, but as a willing participant in one's own divine creation. The profane world knows only the chaotic, terminal death. It is a cold, unforeseen door that slams shut, a final and tragic end. But the initiate, standing at the threshold of this sacred rite, learns a deeper, more ancient secret. The ritual death is something else entirely. It is a structured, purposeful, and generative darkness. It is not a tomb, it is a chrysalis. It is a return to the cosmic womb, a warm, fertile void humming with the potential of all things. To be reborn in light, the old self must be offered to this sacred shadow. The initiate, in an act of ultimate faith, steps into this divine mystery. They allow their mundane life, their old name, their past wounds, their very ego to be dissolved, unmade, and washed clean. And in that moment of perfect, holy dissolution, they are forged anew. They are drawn forth, birthed not of flesh but of spirit, crowned by the Orisha and consecrated in power. Iku Lobi Osha. This is not merely a phrase, it is the master key to this entire process. It is the sacred equation whispered at the heart of the mystery, the timeless and essential formula for spiritual remaking. It is the enduring wisdom that teaches us the most profound truth of all, that to truly, divinely live, one must first have the courage to pass through the sacred, life-giving arms of death. This wisdom is a living current, a river flowing from our ancestors to us, and it flows most powerfully when we share it. If this message resonated with your spirit, help us illuminate the path for others. Like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to ring that sacred bell, so you are notified as we continue this journey into the heart of ancestral wisdom. Please comment, I would love to hear from you. In what way has a symbolic death, an ending, a loss, or a crisis led to a new beginning or a rebirth in your own life? Share your story, your thoughts, your wisdom in the comments below. Let's build that sacred fire together, or just simply comment Iku Lobi Ocha. Until next time, Oshu no Juodu signing out.